Okay.
Good afternoon. It is 4 p.m. in Sydney, 2 p.m. in Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and 12:30 p.m. in India. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Pradeep Khanna from Sydney, welcoming you to the second episode of the Educator's Perspective. And what is this Educator's Perspective? This is an initiative which has been launched by myself and Michael Meadis from Global Mindset and Lumina VR to have to demystify immersive technologies, to have an unbiased view of what and how should an educator start their journey or enhance the journey with immersive technologies. And it's a session which is brought to you from giving different educator perspectives, looking at best practices, looking at lessons learned, how different journeys have gone through. This event is also being supported by the Global VR AR Association, also known as VRA. VR ARA is the world's largest VR AR focused association with 70 plus chapters worldwide, 4,400 plus entities, including schools and universities registered, and a community of tens and thousands of people. We tend to be the first port of call for anything to do with VR AR. Insofar as I am concerned, I am the Executive Director Asia Pacific, as well as the Sydney President, as well as one of the global co-chairs education for VRARA. I am also as part of a global team from IEEE perspective involved into the discussion between open source and proprietary technologies, environmental scan, as well as standards in VRAR. From a global mindset perspective, considering that there is an information asymmetry between demand and supply, we are involved in creating a marketplace. I'm also an adjunct professor at a number of universities in Australia and Asia, as well as I'm on advisory boards of various institutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am now delighted to kick off the session and introduce some very interesting people who will be talking about how do we go about this journey in the current COVID environment when the only way possible is an online virtual collaboration. First and foremost, I would like to introduce Tanveer Kaur from Kuala Lumpur. Tanveer is a well-known speaker at international conferences, as well as is regularly invited by TV stations to give her perspectives on education and edtech. Tanveer is an English language teacher, and she has also been an assistant director with the Department of Education in Malaysia. Tanveer, can you please raise your hand and can we please give a round of applause to Tanveer? And moving on to the next, we have Chris Buswell from Mountain Creek State High School from Sunshine Coast in Australia, in the state of Queensland. Chris has been recognized as Queensland's Teacher of the Year in 2019. In 2020, he was also awarded the CBA Fellowship. He is not only a thought leader, but also a higher order thinking coach. He has kickstarted a couple of years back a great partnership with University of Sunshine Coast, where they have been doing some fabulous work, especially in the area of organic chemistry. Like Tanbir, Chris also has lots more on his profile, but just to mention simply the key highlights. Chris, can you please raise your hand and let's give a round of applause to Chris.
Hi, everyone.
Moving on to the third person today, we have Michael Bilhardt. Although his surname starts with B, but for some reason I keep calling him Michael H. He is an ICT integrator at Knox Grammar, a very prominent school in Sydney, in the senior school. An educator by heart, he works extensively on blending technology with pedagogy. He is a Google certified teacher with over 20 years experience, as well as a regular speaker on international conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Michael B. Michael, can you raise your hand, please?
Hello, everyone.
And last but not the least is Michael Meadis, who along with me kickstarted the Educator's Perspective series. He is the co-founder of a company called Lumina Technology, which has one of the divisions which is focused onto immersive technologies called Lumina VR. He works extensively with schools and has helped a number of schools in their journey in immersive technology. But what I love most about Michael is the work that he does for nonprofits. And he does the similar kind of a journey that he does with schools, etc. He helps the nonprofits in a number of ways, including in their immersive tech journey. So Michael, can you please raise your hand and let's give a big round of applause to Michael. So with that, let's kickstart the session today. And Chris, this is to you. I hear a lot about immersive technologies. So could you showcase or tell us that what is this Big Bang, or why there's so much noise, or what is the power of these immersive technologies? Over to you, Chris.
Absolutely. So you mentioned in the introduction that I've had a partnership going with the University of Sunshine Coast for about 5 years now. And that's kind of where my AR, VR journey started. Today behind me, you can kind of see the various different VR, AR technology that we have at our school, and that basically shows our journey. But I want to start today with right at the very end, and my little dog has decided to play with its toy and make a bit of noise. I'm just going to take it off it. So I wanted today's session to be about pedagogy. Traditionally, I think people have got into the AR, VR space as an engagement tool, and I think that's where a lot of teachers start. But I wanted to show how we've transitioned using VR, AR in a really high-tech, high-quality sense, but integrating that pedagogy. And as I always do, I want to start with a bit of a metaphor. So I have today a couple of pieces of puzzle, and I think around the world, teachers find themselves in a position where they think they are the people that transfer knowledge to students. And so each piece of the puzzle represents a piece of knowledge. And, we've got many pieces of knowledge that we tend to share with students, and we pass them to the students. And sometimes these little pieces get lost, and we all know how annoying it is when we lose a piece of the puzzle. But the reality is I've kind of shifted my thinking in the last few years and taken a pathway where it's not really about the pieces of knowledge. And as we know today, knowledge really isn't the currency that it once was. I'm more interested in how we actually connect the pieces together. And the reality is we want students to develop those cognitive skills, those 21st century skills that allow them to take any pieces of knowledge that they can access, whether it be through educators or online, and form their own bigger picture of what it represents and track their own pathway. So the hope is that we can share a little bit about how we can use the power of technology in terms of VR and AR to actually, track that journey with students. So I'm going to share a couple of things today, and I'm going to take a bit of a chemistry perspective. Tanvir is an English teacher, so I'm going to try and make this accessible to everyone. This is how I started teaching chemistry. So using a whiteboard. This here represents a benzene molecule, a two-dimensional surface. Students have to try and picture what this looks like in a three-dimensional world using what we can draw on a whiteboard. This particular molecule is very famous in chemistry. It's called the Kakula structure. And it's really important because, first of all, it was discovered because of a dream. So August Kakula actually dreamt of a snake eating its tail. And also because it has something called resonance of electrons. So what we do as educators, we kind of move on to this molymod model. And now we've got something that's tactile. Students can play with and they can start thinking about what does this look like in real life? It's a model, but once again, it's static. It doesn't have that ability for students to interact with it. So what I'm going to show you is how we can extend that further, take it from these solid plastic models and actually integrate electron orbitals into the picture. So I'm just going to share my screen. And today I'm going to share with everyone a prototype of the resource that I've been developing with USC for the past 5 years. And we've gone from the Cave 2, which is a visualization studio at USC, to now the VR Oculus Rift headsets, which is a 6 degrees of freedom headset. And it's at the upper end of I guess, the VR headsets that are on the market available to schools at the moment, and requires an inbuilt PC. So I will just I'll just share now. And I'm just going to start up the resource. Okay, so as I said, Mountain Creek State High School is where I'm from, and we've been working with the University of Sunshine Coast. So I'm going to go into VR now. I'm going to get my controllers. All right. So let's go. So what we want to do is we're going to take that two-dimensional surface version of the benzene, and we want to change students' thinking. I usually like to start with getting them to predict first, what do we think a benzene molecule might look like if we could actually zoom down to that atomic world? What would the electron orbitals look like if we could actually see them and touch them and interact with them? So what you're going to look at is just one of the many different animations and interactivities that we have within the Chem Cave. But what the resource of a 6 degrees of freedom headset allows us to do is to actually really start promoting this idea of immersion, presence, and interactivity. So I'm going to click on this benzene molecule that you see in front of us. And now we've got the ability to rotate and play with it. I can actually now drag it closer towards me. I can stand up and I can move and I can get right close to it. As a teaching resource, I would have students in the VR headsets and I would be actually able to facilitate and talk them through this journey. Now we can extend that further. We can actually animate the resource. So I'm just going to stop it into place and I'm going to start an animation. And so what we're seeing now is something that you can't show with that traditional model. We're actually seeing these, what we call unhybridized pi orbitals, and you'll notice that they're actually rotating and moving. So benzene has this really unique structure where we've got this banding of electrons that exist above and below that internuclear axis. Now, I'm going to take it a step further. For anyone that did chemistry, these equations at the back here might be quite familiar. Students have to take that equation and they have to understand the mechanism of how it behaves. So what I can do is I can actually overlay that original molymod model. Once again, it's completely interactive. I've got haptics buzzing in my hand to say that I'm actually interacting with it. And I can actually start an animation that shows here a bromine molecule coming in and interacting with the benzene molecule. So I can start it up, I can pause it at any point, we can talk through the mechanism, and we can actually show that reaction. Now, to sum this up, the power of this sort of resource is not just engagement at a very low level. It's about students being able to take a geometrically relevant piece of information and actually store that memory. The process of learning it allows them to engage, to ask questions, to seek knowledge from each other. It's a peer-to-peer resource as well as a teacher-to-teacher resource. And the hope is, and the aim with these sort of resources is you're presenting information in a new and unique way. You're creating an emotion that goes with that resource, and ultimately you're storing that as a memory with the aim of doing better on exams. I'm going to pass it back to you, Pradeep. That's a little bit of a snapshot of our resource.
Mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you for that. So first question, Chris, is that you mentioned 6 degrees of freedom number of times. What is this 6 degrees of freedom? And why should I, as the educator, be concerned about this technical term?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna get a nice low-end version of a VR headset. So this is a Google Cardboard. When we talk about 3 degrees of freedom, that's the lower end of the VR headsets. What a 3 degrees of freedom headset allows us to do is to move on the the normal Cartesian plane, the Y, the X, and the Z. It allows us to have pitch, yaw, and roll. So within a singular point, you can move in these different axes. What you can't do, and what the power of the more upper end resources allow, is to not just have that pitch, yaw, and roll. We can now move forward and back within a space. We can move up and down. And so with that extra interactivity, we can actually move within a space. It increases the presence and the immersion. But then added to that, you can actually then have a set of controllers which allows you to interact with the resource. And that power of actually choosing your own learning journey, for me, it's about creating empathy with students, getting them to actually feel what this chemistry might be like in the real sense.
So that is fabulous. But I see that you've got number of toys on the table. What are these toys?
So right at the beginning, we've got the Google Cardboard, which everyone can pick up for about $2-3. And I would recommend for anyone that has a smartphone, go and get one of these. It's a great place to start your VR, AR journey. Over here, I'm going to show off this merge cube. So these are about $20. You can buy them online. The merge cubes allow you to use a AR resource on your phone, smartphone. I think I saw Tim out there before, and Tim does a lot of work in AR, augmented reality. So I could actually get a student to create something, using a program like CoSpaces, for example, and they could use a merge cube to actually visualize that resource they have created in the space in front of them. That allows them once again to empathize, but also reflect and refine their thinking in terms of what they've developed and designed. We've got, moving into a couple more headsets. This is kind of what we started in terms of really starting to see if this would work in our school context. We use these plastic headsets, which is just a glorified Google Cardboard, effectively. It's got a better quality lens in it. It actually allows us to integrate. We started with Google Expeditions. So taking students on journeys to other places or worlds that they couldn't enter, especially in a time of COVID. We started with these headsets. We used quite low-end phones, quite cheap. Once again, a 3 degrees of freedom headset. We found these were great for the price. You could probably purchase one of these for about $30, $40. It allowed our students to all see the same resource at once. This required a lot of tech support. We had to allocate, someone from our department to actually provide support to teachers to be, there to set it up, to integrate and make sure that all students are in the same experiences. We've got a more robust solution that we've just integrated now. It's got a higher quality phone as well. So once again, that just improves the experience. We use TFE solutions, and they allow us to kind of integrate everything together. This one here is a new resource, and we found this works really well in our environment. So this is Class VR. What I really like about Class VR, it kind of sets up a playlist that you can download and experience, and then push it out to your students. Just like you wanted to download or listen to a song on Spotify, you can scroll through, find that song. You could push out that song to everyone in your room that has a mobile phone. And that's kind of the way this VR headset works. Class VR supports their resources with the pedagogy. So you've got inbuilt resources already accessible through their library, and you've got the pedagogical framework and the lesson plans that go with it. Once again, it's the 3 Degrees of Freedom headset, but we found that these headsets don't require the tech support. So we have them in, any teacher can book them out in our library and access them quite quickly and efficiently for a lesson. I'm going to quickly move over to our 360-degree camera. So this is an Insta360 1X. I've had this for about 1.5 years now. I love this. In terms of my pedagogy, I really like students creating their own VR experiences. For example, I worked in a partnership with P&G Oz Secondary Schools Initiative, and one of the leaders, Chris Hart from Unstuck Learning, led an activity where we got students from Mount Hagen, which was our partner school in Papua New Guinea, to actually walk around their school context with one of these cameras and actually film and actually create a tour using Google Tours that could be shared with the other partner school. And the idea is that we can empathize with their context by creating a 360
So
degree.
Chris, how much does this cost, this camera?
A Insta360X is about $500 now, I think. Price points are always going down. This is kind of a mid-range. There are cheaper versions, and definitely if you go a GoPro or even further, Insta has a higher quality version, which you can get higher resolution images, but this goes up to 5.7K, so really high quality images if you want it.
So I'll come back to you for more information.
Absolutely.
Go to Tanveer for a second. Tanveer, now have you become an expert post what Chris has said? Are you now jump into VR AR?
Well, there's a lot to digest here, because what is popping into my head right now is cost. All these gadgets are quite expensive. Yeah. And but I must say something about Chris' presentation just now. It was marvelous. That is why one of the reasons why my interest in adopting VR AR in teaching language, because it makes learning in the classroom engaging, meaningful, and most importantly, it helps students to enhance their thinking skills. I just resonate with Chris so much. When he says that we want to see kids coming to school. In this context, in my context as well, many kids see themselves or see school as a place where they come to receive knowledge, as opposed to an experience where they're exposed to knowledge in a fun, engaging way, and they can use it to create something meaningful for themselves. So when Chris was showing all these gadgets, it's very interesting, very informative, but now I've got to think about cost.
So one side you highlighted cost, but do you know kind of where to start and where to end in your journey?
That's another thing, Pradeep. Cost is one, and the other challenge I foresee is even if I buy these gadgets, how do I, in terms of materials, availability of materials? Most of the materials that are available are usually for STEM-related subjects, and I am interested in using VR AR to teach language. So if Chris and Michael, if you could share your experiences, how you start this off, and how can I start my journey into adopting VR AR? in teaching.
Okay, so at one end we've got Chris, who's quite advanced in his journey in VR AR. On the other hand, we've got Tanbih, who's wanting to start a journey into VR AR. Let's go across to Michael Bilhardt, who has been in this journey recently. So, Michael, could you just walk us through how did your journey start and how did you go about it?
Okay, well, hi everyone. So our journey into VR really started right at the bottom end. I would say it definitely started with 360-degree YouTube videos without anything. So just watching 360-degree videos where students are able to, use their cursor to roll around that environment and get a different aspect of a video that they're watching than just watching a straight normal video. From that, we engaged ourselves with some Google Cardboard. So we asked the boys, I work at a boys' school, so I'm going to say boys, probably more so than students. All our students have phones on them. And we're probably like most other schools where phones don't come into the classroom. But if a teacher allows it, the boys are able to bring those in. So we went from there to the boys accessing, those YouTube clips on their phones and being able to view them through something like a Google Cardboard apparatus. So very cheap, very limited expense for us there. I was lucky enough I am lucky enough to work in an organisation that could see the value in what we were doing. And at that stage, like Chris, said earlier, we were probably more, we were more at a stage where our students were consumers of that knowledge. They weren't actually developing anything out of it. And, our management saw that, there was validity in what we were doing here. So we were lucky enough to build what we call an iHub, or our innovation centre. And from there, we've been able to, first of all, which I guess we were able to put in what we call our Igloo, our immersive learning environment, which is a 360-degree Igloo, which in reality really lets you watch those 360-degree videos you can see on YouTube, as a whole within a room. And we have a set of about 15 middle end. I wouldn't say they're high end, but they're sort of middle end VR headsets. So we're a school, we've got a senior school of 2,000 odd boys, but we only have 15 headsets that are probably priced, around that $500 mark, $600 mark. So we haven't overly expended in that area. What we do, however, is we have a space, and this is probably the model that works well. We have a space where teachers can come to us and we can provide them with that, that technology to use. And I'll also add, look, the Insta360 camera that Chris talks about, we have a couple of those as well, and they're awesome. But I tell you what, during the holidays, I just walked around with my iPhone and I used Google Street View to take some images, 360 images of those. And we've uploaded those into our machines and they look absolutely fabulous. So the ability to take 360 images for our students, and you can't take video on those, which you can do with the Instas, but the ability to take 360 images for students to do that anywhere, wherever they are, is awesome. So that's our journey when it comes to hardware. I guess our learning journey in regards to that is
sure. So let me ask you, you mentioned Igloo, and I was transported to Iceland.
Yep.
And virtual reality is an ideal tool for that. But how much did the Igloo cost you?
The Igloo costs a little bit over about $100,000.
So That's interesting. So you could start with a couple of dollars, which is in Google Cardboard, and using right up to $100,000. That's an interesting range. So now here I would want to go to Michael Meadus. Michael Meadus, you have worked with a range of schools. I found that the discussion was going into content creation well as available content. Now, I want you to share your experiences across the board. How are different schools going about their journey in VR, AR in a summary form, as well as kind of focus onto content creation as well as available content. So over to you, Michael Meadus.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think every school is at a different part of the journey, really. We find a lot of schools that are in the same situation as Tanveer. Start of the journey, don't know where to begin, don't even know where to gather information from. And then we have other schools that have a champion inside the school or as part of the organization who really makes it all happen. And so they're much further down the path. And there's everywhere in between. There are schools that understand it, but still need a little bit of help to find the right kind of content or platform. We find that there are multiple solutions that are out there to suit the multiple needs of the schools as well. So I find that when we're working with schools, that we're not really focusing in on the one solution that's going to fix the whole thing. We find that we sort of pull from a smartphone platform. We might pull from an all-in-one type headset platform. There's a few different ways to solve it. So I think that and then there's VR and AR. There's immersive igloos and caves. There's all sorts of different I suppose parts of the journey. A lot of it is going to be. I think a lot of it's going to rely on what sort of resources the school has, not just in terms of budget, which is Tanveer, you mentioned budget. I think that budget is just one part of it, and really it's not even the big part of it. The big part of it is more about the knowledge around where do you start, and finding someone who can help or be a part of that. And that's really the key to it, is finding that person, whether it be another educator, whether it be someone like me or as a consultant or whoever can actually lead you through the journey and take you from one step to the other. And if you are looking to create your own content, great. You'll find people who can help you, other educators, they'll be able to help you. Consultants like me, we can help you with those kinds of solutions. If you want to find just a simple solution, low cost, low maintenance, that can be as well. That can be gathered as well. So again, just by going to those same resources, the same people, other teachers, what have you guys done? And just have discussions, open discussions. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're sort of creating this particular forum, is so that we can answer a lot of those questions, because I find that I don't actually think that there is, right now, I don't think there is a bandwidth that is, the most trodden path. I think that right now, it's right across the spectrum. We have schools just starting. We have schools who haven't even thought about starting. And then we have schools who are just like, wow, we're powering ahead with an Igloo. And everything in between.
I think there are some very, very good points, especially kind of looking at that people are in different parts of the journey.
Yeah.
And people have different requirements depending on what their strengths and resources are, and a number of other parameters. Now, here I want to go to Chris. Now, Chris, I would like you to share also that, when did you start your journey? How does the journey look like? But I also want you to focus on how did you manage the different stakeholders? You got the students, you got the parents, you got the teachers, you got the Department of Education, you got so many different stakeholder groups, and everybody has a different perception as you go in the journey. So over to you, Chris. You are on mute.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in terms of our context, I mean, first of all, to be honest, even though I've been working in this VR space, developing my own resource, I still feel like there's so much for me to learn. It's such a big, diverse ecosystem out there. You've got, high-end companies developing resources right down to, the people doing it for their passion projects. There's so many different ways in which you can take it, and you need to make sure that it fits your own context. For us, that was a little bit of trial and error. And what we needed to do was to have a proof of concept before we really invested any, large resources. So for example, our proof of concept was using Google Expeditions, which I mentioned before. What we needed to do was to allocate a little bit of money to provide support for teachers. We all know teachers can be a little bit fit the technology, and we need to make sure that people are empowered to use it. They understand what its purpose is. It's, not just that you can put students in VR and then walk away and they get that as a reward. And we needed to instill that culture in really early first, that this is a part of integrating into your curriculum, into your everyday pedagogy. And it's not something that's just static and will just appear once per year for students. And that was really important, getting teachers to understand why we're doing it. So our proof of concept was to get teachers into the VR. So we had to provide that PD. We secured some time and we ran through teachers through. And it's funny, like some things just start spreading by word of mouth once you have a couple of people that have a really great experience. And then we got overwhelmed. We got overwhelmed by people wanting to access it and use it for their subjects. People exploring the resources out there going, can we have this? And for us, that was a nightmare because, we've only got so much time that we have for our support staff. And so, we need to look at some of those other more robust solutions that I mentioned before, like Class VR, to allow it to be accessible to our large school community. For me, the VR resource that I just showed you earlier, I haven't, or my school hasn't actually inputted any money into this resource. And that's been developed by getting to know the community and being aware of what that makes that community special and what they need. So for me, once again, I keep using this word, but it's really important for me as an educator. You have to empathize. And I wanted to provide a pathway for students, those high achieving students in my region, for our local university. So I developed a program that would bring that culture in for those students, seeing it as a pathway. And then I saw this resource that they have at the university and asked them to, support building this chemistry resource.
You're absolutely right, Chris, because where VR, AR at the moment is a bit like the Wild West. Nobody knows who else is doing something. And unless you are part of a community, it is very difficult to validate that whether you're in the right direction, who else is doing what, and so on and so forth. And with that, I will go to Tanbir. Tanbir, now I presume that you've become an expert, but one more question which comes to my mind is that do you come across kind of different vendors coming with different solutions, and you are wondering whether that is the right solution, or is that really looking what you're looking for, or where to look for help, etc.? Do you have those kind of situations? You are on mute. Can you unmute yourself, Tanbir? Yeah.
Okay. With regards to VR, AR, we haven't got vendors coming to us at school and approaching us, We haven't got that kind of culture, or that kind of facility here yet. But that's the thing with mindsets here. When it comes to in my context, I would say sometimes we spend more, time in beautifying places physically than spending money on technology. But things are changing around in my context. School I'm teaching, that we have started to invest in at least projectors and LCD projectors, and that's coming very handy. So we're moving in the right direction, but there's also some schools around here. When it comes to using technology in the classroom, they do not see why they should do it. They're so used to carrying on with the normal way of teaching and learning.
So let me ask you this particular, you've kind of broken down, but let me kind of ask you another related question. And that is that it seems to me that the mindset in terms of technology adoption itself is a big challenge. Then thereby comes a related question that are you using education technologies at all in the school? We'll talk about VR, AR again, but I suppose it comes back to the basic question. So are you using education technologies in school at the moment?
Well, we use the LCD projectors. That's what we have. We use materials from the internet. We use Google Classroom, but we are still VR and AR is like an alien. We know about it, like I know about it, but we're trying to. I'm trying to venture into how to use this in the classroom because it's very engaging. I see it. Students these days, they need resources or technology to engage them into the learning because when they go home, they have their gadgets and it's much more engaging and meaningful when they do things at home and try to learn something new at home. But when it comes to school, it's chalk and talk. So it's boring for them. They're not interacting with what they're learning. And I see that very strongly. I see that coming from students like, I'm not doing what I can do. I can do this better. And that's why I've set out looking for different ways to teach and learn. And I think both Michaels have given me an idea to use Google Expeditions and 360 degrees. I think I can use this now to venture into trying to teach students to look for videos where I can try to teach them, describing things, for example, and it becomes a bit more real. And I will start off with the cardboards and see how it comes about. So that will be a good starting point for me.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think as always, yes, start small because, that will give more, and you get the buy-in from different stakeholders. I couldn't agree more with you. Another question which comes to my mind, and this again, I have to go to Michael Bilhardt. Michael, now, there is virtual reality, there is augmented reality. Now, which path did you go down? Did you go down the VR path or did you go down the AR path? And why did you go down that particular path? You are on mute. You will have to unmute yourself, Michael Bilhardt.
So I wasn't sure whether that was me or the Michael M. I'd just like to actually quickly jump back to what we were just talking about then in regards to that start of that journey. There's a program called Co-Spaces that Chris mentioned. We're about to start. I think a lot about what we're talking about here is immersion, or partly to do with immersion. And I think you can actually, as a starting point, throw away that idea of the VR headset. If you want to, we're about to start we have 350 students in year 8, and we're about to start an integrated learning assessment task. To cut a long story short, the Earth is about to blow up. We're sending 50 people in a spaceship through a black hole behind Jupiter to another planet to restart the human population. And we're doing that in co-spaces. So we're actually getting the boys into groups of 4, and they're going to have to actually use the 6 global competencies of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, charactership, and citizenship to develop this project. Now, Co-Spaces allows you to have a VR element. So if you can have Co-Spaces on your phone, you can put that into Google Cardboard. Co-Spaces has physics, it has coding, it's an amazing product, Co-Spaces, but you can also walk through that immersive environment without any headset whatsoever. So I think I think we really need to, if you're looking at it from a starting point, I think it's about immersion, and about immersion where students can learn about things, but also where students can develop products. Because whatever we look at Knox, we always look at it from both point of views. Can we teach with it, but can the boys build with it as well? Now, CoSpaces, yes, it has a cost, but it has a minimal cost in regards to what we're talking about or what we've talked about here so far. So I know I didn't answer your question exactly there, but I did want to get that in. As I said, we're putting 350 boys into this at the start of next Wednesday. We did it last year and it was a phenomenal success. So I would say, let's not always think about, when we're thinking about VR, AR, that it's that concept about immersion, and that can be done in a lot of.
I love your comments, Michael Bilhardt, especially that we've got to look at the power of emotion rather than getting boxed into AR and VR. But at the same time, I want an answer, because you see, when we start the journey, it is also important to look at what is the state of readiness of the institution as a whole, in terms of adopting technology. And here I will go to Michael Meades. And Michael Meades, do you think that, because AR can be very easily started off with your mobile phones. So would you suggest to Tanveer to start the journey? Yes, keeping overall immersion in mind, but maybe start experimenting with this and, Google expeditions, on the VR perspective. So what is your take on AR and VR?
Really good question. I think that there's more impact in VR. So I've always loved VR more than AR, but AR definitely is an amazing tool. It really is an amazing tool for visualization. I tend to like VR because there's a lot of content out there that can be used. And we've spoken about CoSpaces, which is great. We've spoken about Google Expeditions. YouTube is a massive repertoire of information and of content, a lot of content. You could jump on your phone literally and look at YouTube and then just type in any subject whatsoever, anything that you want to find, and just put VR at the end of it or 360 at the end of it. And I guarantee you will find a lot of content. So if you want to, let's say, teaching, for languages, for instance, and you wanted to teach about animals, you could literally just go onto YouTube, type in animals VR or animals 360, and you will see all sorts of animals in there. You'll see farm animals, you'll see CGI content, you'll see elephants, you'll see everything in there. So you could use the content that's on there and use it in the right kind of context, the context that you're after. So you could say, what is it that you're seeing? I'm seeing an elephant. What color is the elephant? So on and so forth. Creatively, you could use it as well. AR is different. It's a different tool, and it is extremely effective, but it's for different purposes. So I like the idea of being able to see through AR, let's say a molecule, holding up a merge cube, holding your phone to it, and then turning it around and being able to see it, and then switching to a different type of molecule and being able to switch and look at that. And so you can see all sorts of different things because you can just switch between one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's easily scalable. It's very easily scalable because anybody with a smartphone and a merge cube, which is, very little cash, can find that content. And there's a lot of content out there for it as well. So I do have a preference in VR because I love the impact that it has. There's so much that you can do with it. Chris is talking about empathy. Empathy is an amazing tool. It's fantastic, especially when you're looking at, creative storytelling. Empathy is essential. I love the fact that when you come to VR, you can start with a certain level of knowledge I suppose a beginning knowledge of something. Someone will say, well, like as Chris was saying, what do you understand already about, the benzene molecule? And then going in and discussing it before you jump into the headset, and then accurately reflect what it is that, that it actually does and how it works. And then everybody comes from different levels of knowledge to being at that same level, and it's the accurate level. So there's the creative side of it in VR, which is highly impacted due to empathy. And there's also the visual side of it and the accuracy, that you can convey as well. So it's the message. I love the power of conveying the message in VR.
Yes, I understand. Actually, that is, at the end of the day, it comes back to the same point which Michael Bilhardt was making in terms of the emotion and the impact, which is, and the engagement which comes with it.
Yeah.
I suppose another question which comes to my mind, and I will first of all throw open to the audience for questions. Feel free, raise your hand for asking questions. In the meanwhile, while I wait for your questions to come, I will go over to Chris. Chris, you took the path of going down the chemistry route. Tanveer is in languages. So which is the best area to start? Is it the STEM? Is it arts? Is it languages? What is your take on that?
I consider STEM completely multidisciplinary, and it covers all aspects of the curriculum. Really depends how you perceive it. I'm very partial to VR, but I think AR is going to play a massive place in education, and I think it's very applicable to the English context. I love what Michael B said previously and his ideas and what they're rolling out. The little puzzle pieces that we mentioned before, they're actually they form a Harry Potter puzzle, and it just gave me an idea, Tanveer. So you imagine that you use CoSpaces and you got your students to design their own scene from Harry Potter. They are 100% engaged in developing it. They could then use the Merge Cube, which is an AR version, to have that little scene sitting in front of them. Imagine them developing a creative story based on that scene, the power of actually visualizing it and then getting to think about how characters interact in that scene. So it's not about STEM, it's not about a subject, it's about how you can actually utilize it for the power of your subject, how you think about it in the context of what you want to achieve.
Okay, so Tanveer, over to you. And now, are you better, more knowledgeable about VR, AR, or where to start your journey? Or have you become more confused by the kind of different perspectives that people have thrown at you? So where do you think that you would like to
Not my fault. Not my fault.
Well, I think I will start with what Chris just suggested just now. That seems to involve a lot of technical knowledge on the part of the teacher and the students. So, and I do not have that kind of technical support here, but I will definitely start with Google Expeditions and 360 degrees. I think that's a good starting point for me. And also I must add, that actually there are some schools in Malaysia that are using VR, AR. It's just that everyone is working in silos and you do not know what the other school is doing. And this whole problem of we need to get together and network a little bit more to see, to have a better picture of what's happening within a context, within a country, within Kuala Lumpur. So yeah, as you said, Pradeep, earlier, this problem that we do not know what everyone else is doing. That makes it a bit more difficult to venture into something new because, you don't have anybody, you don't have a support system.
So let me also connect you with other people in Malaysia who are members of VR AR Association. We also have a university in Malaysia, which is in part of a VR ARA. I will connect you with those people, and there's already a community which is building up. But more importantly is that, we are in the current COVID environment, and virtual collaboration is going to be the way forward even for another couple of months. before the vaccine comes out. So I think how we build up global communities is going to be part of the way. And really what it comes down to, we've also got schools and universities in Philippines as members. So it may be worthwhile even to connect you with them to see how they are going about their journey, because end of the day, we are looking at maybe similar kind of environments, you know. So that is absolutely fabulous. Now, we are at the tail end of our webinar today. So I will make a good, quick round the table for some last minute thoughts by each of the speakers. And starting with you, Chris, what is your key message for today?
My key message is to start slow. For me, there is a massive community available online, and I just trawl through and I look at what other people are doing. It gives me ideas. Watching other people and seeing how they can implement it, it empowers you to actually take those first steps. You know, I said to you, you just use CoSpaces, which might seem quite flippant, but the reality is that it's simple, and students they have these skills, and they can, you know, they can access a phone and use a phone app quite quickly without really requiring much teacher input. And that's where CoSpaces is at. These programs that are out there are extremely user friendly. So it's just about putting your toe in the water, starting up with something cheap and easy and having a play.
Thank you very much. And now it is over to Michael Bilhardt. What is your key message?
Look, my key message, I think, and it sort of hits on one of the questions that's kind of come up here. I actually think I've been doing technology integration for a while now. I think the technology has sort of gotten to the point where it shouldn't be that scary for teachers, or it isn't that scary for teachers anymore. If you take things like CoSpaces, for example, and even something like Minecraft, which is an immersive environment in itself as well, the students themselves have got quite a good overview, or are able to explore those programs enough on their own to understand how to use them. A question's popped up about how much I've actually been involved in the creating content or part of that with students. To be honest, my role is more about finding what we can do and then presenting it, and then just giving it to the kids and just letting them work their way with it. So my take-home message would be, don't be afraid, have a go. We always tell our students it's okay to fail, and I think it should be okay for us as well, because if we do muck it up, we just get up and we have another go. And I'll guarantee you there'll be a couple of kids in your classroom that'll just run with it, and you can just say, go and see those two boys or those two girls over there.
Thank you very much, Michael. And there's a question by Tim Gentle. And he is asking, is there a basic VR creation tool, say for primary school level, that is good to introduce them onto Unity? Like Scratch, Python. Sounds like CoSpace is the one Michael B likes and is using. Are there others? And I will pass this question on to Chris or to anybody else in the panel who would like to. The question is that, is there a basic VR creation tool for introducing school kids to Unity? Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, but it definitely doesn't have the power of Unity. I'd love to hear other people's perspectives. I really haven't found something that really takes that next step and moves into that, what the power of Unity has space.
Okay. Now, this question is for you, Michael Bilhardt, and this is from Taslish. And Taslish asks that on a percentage basis, how involved were you in creating the content for your course for your students? 80% or more? The question once again, on a percentage basis, how involved were you in creating the content for your course for your student?
So that's the one I was trying to answer a little bit before. I'm not involved in any way with the creation of the content. Really, I'm the apparatus provider, if you want to say. You know, we set up the Igloo, we have the headsets. We basically work. We work around the model of the teachers providing the content for the students and the VR providing the avenue in which the students are able to provide answers to the content that the teachers are trying to get them to look at. So I guess that's more from a consumption point of view. We also have students, however, that are using Unity, for example, to start developing content for our Igloo. So we do have a plugin for the Igloo, for example, so students that are developing content in Unity can view that inside that Igloo environment. But that's the students developing the content themselves. I'm not really a content developer for this. I'm more of a provider of the tools for the students and the teachers to use, and that's the way I would like it to remain. I don't see myself as a person.
Thank you, Michael, but that gets you to a related question, and I will ask Tanveer to answer that. You know, and again, I will ask one of the other panel members to answer this question. The question is that given the situation that Michael Bilhardt, you know, basically provides the tools for the students to create content, should there be a control over the content? What would you do in Kuala Lumpur? Let's say hypothetically that you've gone down this particular path. Would you have some control over the content, or is it a free for all? You are on mute, I think. Tanveer, you are on mute.
Yes. Control over the content.
Which is being created by the students.
Well, I definitely want to give it some kind of direction, because, you know, it has to be of value to what they're doing in the classroom and the teaching points, what I'm going to try to teach them. So it has to be, I would want to have certain control over it, because, you know, so that they don't go off track.
So in other words,
can I just jump in? So
yes.
If this question, because I might have been answering the question in the wrong way. If this question pertains to the CoSpaces project that I mentioned earlier, and if you were talking about content there, we've got a fully developed scaffolded website for that has everything in it. So that's fully content organized by myself and another teacher. But if you're talking about developing the students making the content that they're making for the task. So for example, the task is that they have to build a sustainable Mars environment. Now I don't build that content themselves, but we scaffold them through the website that they're provided with information and a little bit of know-how on how to do it.
Excuse me, can I ask everybody to go on mute, please? Sorry, Michael Bilhardt, I couldn't hear your last comment, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which ones were it? That's okay. So I want to go across to you, Michael Meadows. What is your thoughts, or what are you seeing in terms of?
Yeah, so just going back to a couple of quick things. Unity, by the way, is developing, and I'm pretty sure they might have released in a beta version of a student creation tool. So CoSpaces is amazing. It's a great place to begin, and the next jump would be that. So I would look into that. That's I think that was just relating to something that Chris mentioned earlier. Maybe just have a quick check on that one, Chris. Just Google it if you like. There is a beta version. I think that, you know, in terms of what I would suggest, you know, as a beginning, I think we're all saying the same thing, Tanveer, which is start somewhere slow or somewhere, you know, at the lower end. Grab your phone, download Google Expeditions, download other programs. There is another one called Within VR. Within VR is great as well. There's a lot of good content there. And have a look through YouTube just for simple content that might be useful. So look at your classroom content, and in languages, whatever you're about to teach tomorrow, let's say, for instance, and say, okay, well, we're going to learn about shapes, colors, whatever it might be. Type that in as a subject, followed by the word VR or 360, and you'll see a lot of content come up there. When you do view it, it'll allow you to move your phone around to view it like this in 360. But it also, if you tap the screen, it has a little icon down the bottom in the bottom corner, which looks like a set of VR goggles. You tap that and it goes into this thing called side-by-side view. That's when you put it into a headset, and that's when you can actually view it without the need to move it around with your hands. Do that and start the process. That is my suggestion. Just start the process. Those three things, those three key things will start the process for you. And then the next step is to find other people in the organization, the teachers, that can help you by creating your own little community. If you can't find the community external to the school, create one within the school itself as almost like a task force of how to go about doing this. What would you like to see? What would you like to see? What are the technical things that we're going to need? You're going to need to possibly look at the policies. I think we mentioned in a previous chat, the policies of the school on mobile phones and that kind of stuff as well, and trying to figure out how you would go around that. You'll need to look at things like your Wi-Fi system and just those kinds of things as well. But it can start with really simple technology and simple things to look at. I started my journey the same way as Chris and the same way as Michael Bilhardt did, and that is with just cardboard headset and looking at YouTube clips, games that you could download on Google Play, all that kind of stuff just fascinated me. And then I started looking into places where you could download stories and movies that are in 360, such as Within. And there's another one called VR, V-E-E-R, VR, VR. Have a look at that one as well. There's a lot of content out there that you can look for through your phone. And that's where I would suggest you start.
Thank you very much. Now we have gone 8 minutes over time. So therefore, I will, yes, we are 1 hour and 8 minutes.
Again?
Yeah, but it is fabulous. You see, end of the day, what matters is engagement, and what matters is how involved the discussion was. And once again, I will say a big thank you to all of you, to Chris, to Tanveer, to both the Michaels, as well as the audience, for making this as such a wonderful discussion. And as always, I will say, join the VR AR Association, because you will be part of a global community. And in fact, Chris is going to be one of the co-leaders for our STEM community of practice. And like this, we are creating great communities across globally to really get the best minds, as well as to demystify VR AR. With that, it is Pradeep from Sydney, thanking you all once again, and look forward to the next episode of Educator's Perspective, which will be sometime in the month of October. And we will have some more interesting perspectives for you. Take care. Have a good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, whatever it is in your part of the world. And look forward to catching up with you next time around. Bye for now.
Bye all.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.